Hello, the internet. You're with gothatfunk again, and this is a video response to my friend Tomoz Girl and her video about the First Amendment. Eli, I liked your video very much, and it's always a great topic for conversation, the Bill of Rights in general, and the First Amendment is probably the one that most people are the most familiar with because more or less everybody knows they've got a right to free speech and so forth. But I'm going to read the amendment out loud here in one go and then dissect it bit by bit. Okay, first of all, here we go. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or of the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Okay. Uh, it's interesting because when I was in school, I remember studying this. I can really remember it very vividly. The Bill of Rights has always been pretty important to me. And the teacher actually asked the class why we thought each of those things didn't have an amendment of their own. Why were they all put together in one amendment? Because that's a lot of different sorts of freedoms covered. And what basically came out of those conversations that I can still recall to this day was that whether it's the establishment of religion or the free exercise of religion, the freedom of speech in the press, and to petition the government, it's all basically got in common a freedom of idea, a freedom of thought and expressing those thoughts in whatever way that is, whether you're expressing an idea or a belief or an opinion, and that the government is not safe from those expressions. So I think the First Amendment is beautiful in that sense because the founders obviously recognized the commonalities of these things. Plus, it's important that if they didn't give these different things different amendments for the sake of the fact that putting them all in the First Amendment eliminates any suggestion that the right of a free press might have primacy over the right of an individual's free speech or the establishment of religion. I mean, if these things were itemized 1, 2, 3, 4 or whatever, it might later generations might have come to think that the first one was the most important, and then so forth. And I think the way the Bill of Rights fits together, it is sort of like that. The First Amendment is the most important, and you could argue that they come in succession after that, or you could argue against it pretty well also. But I do see a sort of a logical sequence in the Bill of Rights, and the First Amendment is obviously really important. Let's talk about the actual bits of it. No law establishing respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting people for the free exercise thereof. Anybody who knows anything about the founding of the United States of America understands why they didn't want an established religion. That was one of the problems. That was one of the reasons people were leaving their European homelands and coming to America, was to practice the religion of their choice, which they didn't feel they were free to do. And they recognized that a plurality of denominations and so forth meant that there had to be no specific religion held as the prime religion, because that would necessarily diminish the others, and no one has the right to say their beliefs are more important than anyone else. The only way to make it equal is to make them all the same. So that's pretty important. Obviously, we're abridging the freedom of speech. We should all be able to say whatever we want, so long as we're not inciting violence, basically, or making it likely that people will get hurt. Like, for example, the old don't yell fire in a crowded room routine and all that. But freedom of speech is a really good freedom to have. It's probably the one most people cherish the most. Freedom of the press, for the same reason. The press is an organ of private ownership, which is able to question the government, hold the government to account, and make sure that the public can be informed, which is pretty important in a democracy. We could argue about whether the press does that anymore, but that's what it's supposed to be there for, that freedom. The right of the people to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances, because without that right, then we're hostage of the ballot box, and the ballot box might not always work. And it seems to me the founders understood that the people needed to have some kind of direct way, just in case the election cycles and whatever weren't immediate enough for us to make our grievances known to the government. we could petition, we could demonstrate, and I think that is a right that gets nowhere near enough attention and doesn't get exercised as much as maybe it should. I think if more people in America were more prone to protests and get active as an activist, our country would have a completely different complexion. So yeah, that's my opinion about the First Amendment. Thank you for asking, and until next time, if you've got any questions, let me know down below. But other than that, may all your ups and downs be ups.